We can cross over to Dipti Laurent, who's here for a look through the international papers today. And you're starting with the reaction from French actress Catherine Deneuve to the reactions to an op-ed that she co-authored in Le Monde last week.
We could even say widespread backlash, really worldwide backlash, actually, because that article went viral last week, and essentially many people perceived it as an apology for sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and also they saw it as a huge criticism of the MeToo movement, obviously sparking a lot of criticism, therefore, from supporters of the movement and feminists. Now, Catherine Deneuve has offered something of a mea culpa to the French newspaper Libération, apologizing to the sex abuse victims who may have been offended by the piece that was signed by, as you said, 100 prominent French women. But Deneuve still defends her criticism of the MeToo movement in this article, saying it could lead to censorship.
Now, staying in France, a leading video game studio has also come under fire for its alleged sexist and racist culture.
Well, it's been a really, really busy weekend, as we'll see in later stories as well. Now, that studio is Quantic Dream, one of the world's most well-known video games developers. According to statements by a handful of former employees and reported by the French newspaper Le Monde, the studio promoted a toxic work culture. The most serious accusations are a database of over 600 photoshopped images of collaborators, of employees in racist, sexist and homophobic situations. It's worth noting that 83% of staff at Quantic Dream are men. The studio's founding president, David Cage, who, by the way, is a recipient of France's highest honor, the Légion d'honneur award, has said he's, quote, shocked by the allegations, but he's denied a culture similar to, quote, a rugby dressing room. Worth noting also that French authorities have now opened an investigation.
Wow, so the fashion world's most cherished photographer, Mario Testino, has also had a series of allegations leveled against him in recent days.
That's right. Now, from video games to the fashion world, the New York Times broke this story over the weekend, reporting that 13 men have come forward accusing Mario Testino, who is, as you said, fashion's most cherished photographer, and a fellow photographer, Bruce Weber, of inappropriate touching and sexual coercion during photo shoots over the years. Both celebrities, once again, have said they're shocked, quote, shocked by the allegations. But in this case, it's worth noting that Vogue, which employed Mario Testino, have broken contact with him for the moment. They've sort of put him on the sidelines. So it's sort of proof that the MeToo movement not only just includes male victims, but is starting to have repercussions in different professions. Now, across the world, in China, we're seeing this as well. A university professor who was accused last week of sexually harassing a Chinese woman. Well, he's been fired by his university. This Chinese woman came forward last week, essentially inspiring other women in China also to recount their own experiences with sexual harassment. As the Epoch Times says, it appears that even China is also having its MeToo moment.
Let's move on now to a little bit of politics. And over in Germany, the two major parties have reached a preliminary deal for a coalition government.
Well, that deal still needs to be signed on paper, but Angela Merkel, as you know, won the election last October. Since then, her Christian Democrats party has struggled to form a coalition. It appears that over the weekend they've managed to find one, possibly with Germany's other major party, the Social Democrats, led by Martin Schulz. For one writer in the Financial Times, this coalition will radically reshape Europe, and for the better, because it would mark Germany's biggest step towards integration with the EU since the Maastricht Treaty 25 years ago. That coalition does need to be validated next weekend, but many within the SPD party have already expressed their opposition, something that Die Welt can't really understand. The paper takes aim at those from the party, saying, why are they focusing on their discontent when they should be happy that they're even included in the coalition?
Now on to Brazil. The country is heading to the polls later this year, but there's really one man who's dominating the headlines, and that's the far-right presidential candidate who's currently polling second.
His name is Jair Bolsonaro. The Guardian says he's a man who's praised the country's military dictatorship, has said his children would, quote, never be gay because they're too well educated, and allegedly once told a woman that she's too ugly to be raped. Now, this man
Charming.
Very charming indeed. This man is now hot on the heels of Lula to become the next president of Brazil. There's still a long way to go, so anything can happen. He's a former army officer who's seen by many as an outsider, but who could be a fresh face to help kind of clean up Brazil's notoriously corrupt governing class. Many of them do see him as Brazil's answer to Donald Trump.
Well, talking of the US president, one artist has emblazoned one of Trump's hotels in Washington with a rather crude word.
Well, we know that the U.S. president did refer to El Salvador, Haiti, and a host of African countries. I'm sorry to have to use this word, but he did use it as, quote, shithole countries. Well, Trump has received serious diplomatic blowback for that. And now citizen protests. A Washington activist projected that very word onto the front of Trump's hotel in Washington this weekend, accompanied by several poop emojis. Others have chosen to fight the fight online, leaving many poor Yelp reviews criticizing the hotel, using this word to describe his hotels.
Diptyque Laurent with a look through the international papers. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of this bulletin, but do stay tuned. I'll be back in a couple of minutes with all the top world news headlines. Also coming up in today's Focus report, in Mexico, robberies of pharmacies and hospitals are on the rise, with the country's black market awash with stolen medicine.